Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Carl and Rick Talk Risk. Rick, how are you?
Awesome. How's
Nice.
everyone doing?
Yeah. Rick, you've been jet setting this time. You've been in Chicago, Nashville. Tell us about it. What were you doing there?
Um, well, Nashville, I was at the giving a talk at the Association of Financial Professionals meeting, and in Chicago, I gave a presentation at the ILA International Leadership Association meeting. So yeah, lots of fun.
Yeah.
Lots of hotels. You know, lots of networking,
Yeah.
conference, and so you're off to London soon, right?
Yeah. Next week, it's Risk Minds London. Supposed to get a lot of bank executives, a lot of politicians are presenting. Um, um, so, yeah, and I'll be presenting a short session about the article I wrote for Premier Intelligent Risk a while back now on birth rates. And I'm trying to connect that to risk analytics because that's the stream I fall into. So it'll be a bit of a challenge, but I have some ideas there. Um, but Rick, conferences. You go to a lot every year. You're obviously asked to speak. You even spoke at the Premier Canadian Risk Forum about a year ago, I think. I think it. I think the most recent one was kind of last week. Um, and I imagine we have some people watching who haven't been to a conference or they don't get the value of it. What, maybe I'll start with this one. Uh, you know, eh, these conferences, there's a lot of senior people, but there's also a lot of um, uh, vendors. There's quite a range of people you can network with as somebody early in their career, somebody who is trying to learn more about the industry outside of your own company, get some contacts. It's useful for that purpose. Um, yeah, did you go before you spoke at conferences? Did you get any sort of value out of attending them? And what did you learn from that?
I am probably the last person in the world that you want to ask that question of. First off, I'm kind of socially autistic, so um, networking to me is I'd much rather go to the dentist to have a root canal done than go to a networking event. To be quite frank, because of that, I only go to conferences where I'm speaking at. I For me, speaking breaks down the barrier.
Yeah.
And ironically, I think that most people hate presenting to a large audience. Actually, the larger the audience, the easier I find it to do.
Hmm.
And if you're speaking to a large audience, then the audience comes to you and you don't have to kind of force your way into conversations. The conversations come to you.
Yeah.
I think the main thing about a conference is to go there with a goal and to go there with a plan. Um, uh, when I go to a conference, I generally, and I do this very specifically, is I always go to the talks that I'm the least interested in.
Okay.
Um, I go to the things that I know absolutely nothing about. I go to the topics that I care nothing about because I see a conference as a great way to build your cognitive diversity.
Hmm.
And this is going to sound pretty egotistical, but at most conferences, if it's a field that I'm interested in or a topic that I'm interested in, been doing some work in, not that I'm brilliant, but generally at a conference, the talks are geared much more for a general audience.
Yeah.
Obviously, some speakers don't do that, but most speakers will try to make it as interesting to as broad a range of people as possible. And if you're already into that topic, well, you're probably just preaching to the choir,
Yeah.
or you're hearing the choir if you're into that topic. So
Yeah.
I kind of do the opposite strategy. Is I generally have no one that I'm planning to meet. Uh, Obviously, I try to make friends and whatnot, but I go to the things I'm not interested in, the sessions I'm not interested in, because that's how you build cognitive diversity.
It's a good point. You managed to take my wordy, awkward question and make something of it, as always, Rick. So thank you.
Yeah.
Uh,
Boy,
I,
this is going downhill fast if that's the high point.
but you made me think. Uh, I haven't approached conferences like that, and honestly, I haven't been to a conference in a while. But the sessions with a lot of speakers, I think, tend to end up very sort of very general in what they're saying, and they all play off each other, and a lot of times you get this sort of, well, I agree with X over there,
Yeah.
and it's like, okay, well, we've heard what they think, so do you have anything to add to it? And also, if you've got four speakers up there and a moderator, you're speaking in 30-second sound bites. So, there's not that ability to get in depth, so maybe target individual speakers, people who are
Ye-
doing,
Uh, yeah. Again, first off, I could not agree more. At one of the conferences that will remain nameless, I was their format is you must have a moderator. And almost all of the speakers were or almost all of their sessions were these four-person panels with a moderator, and
uh,
uh, it's useless, or I find it's incredibly inefficient. And because I was a lone speaker, they wanted to have a moderator. So
mhm,
I worked with the moderator in advance. We had some questions, but to be quite frank, if someone is reading you a question like this, from a pre-script, um, it just loses all the spontaneity.
yeah,
It loses your ability to zig and zag. Um, if you have a 4 or 5 person, moderated discussion, uh, very few people are going to go out on a limb and tell you what they really think.
yeah,
It's a
yeah,
lot. Well, I'm just going to add a little bit to what Carl says. I'm going to add my grain of sand to the mountain of knowledge that Carl,
yeah,
brought up, and
yeah.
yeah.
It gets too, I can't think of a good word for it. Lovey-dovey is the only one that comes to mind. But it's like you kind of want some acrimony there. You want people like not actually disagree with that. I think, like a bit of a debate going. That would be almost more exciting if you've got more than one speaker, yeah, who hopefully come at things from completely different angles. Um,
I
yeah,
was on one of these panels at another conference recently, albeit it wasn't a panel. There was a session with four distinct speakers.
okay,
Okay. And we're all the theme was kind of the same, but we're all very different. We all had our own self-contained separate presentation. And then came to the Q&A, and let's just say that um, the confidence of some of the speakers, or their familiarity with dealing with a live audience varied greatly amongst the four people panelists. And
yeah,
so when it came to Q&A, um, it was more or less dominated by two people. Okay. uh, which again became extremely awkward. And
mm,
you're trying to get everyone into the conversation, but when their only comment is, well, yes, I agree with so and so,
mm,
and that's literally it. And or you ask a leading question, well, what do you think about that? Well, it's an interesting question. Haven't really thought about it. Is the only response. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. You know, talking of other ways to shake things up, this was supposed to be about attending a conference. I feel like we're giving feedback on how to run a conference, but whatever, we'll run with it. We'll run our own conference one day, Rick. Um, if the podcast gets big enough. Yeah, one thing I'm giving you live feedback in this response too. One thing, I'm using a couple of slides for my session on next Wednesday, and I followed some advice I got from you a while back, and there's absolutely no words from me on those slides. It's all images. My topic lends itself well to visuals, I think. So, I'm using a lot of population pyramids and a couple of charts, headlines, stuff like that. But there's absolutely none of my words in there. And I got to tell you, it was such a stress-free way to make a deck. Like it was fun and exciting. And like I kept chuckling to myself, like, oh, I can play off this, I can riff on that. Yeah, just it can go so many ways. It's exciting to present. And if it's exciting to present, it's probably exciting to listen to as well. And people will get people engaged too. Um, we need more of that, I think. I've done a lot of decks with that are so wordy and so many bullet points, and they're just a grind. And this was fun.
I take it from the point of the viewer. So if I'm sitting through uh, a presentation where the speaker is de facto reading the slides, and perhaps this is just me being self-centered, but why do you think I'm so dead I can't read?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh, Also, when you have very wordy slides, it means that you can't change tack. It means that
Yes.
if you see the audience is falling asleep, you can't really speed up or you can't slow down.
Yeah. You're on the rails.
If an interesting question comes up or a point comes up that you see the audience is really alive, you're stuck.
Yeah.
Third, if you want people to remember your message, no one's going to remember the words, but they will
Mm-hmm.
remember an image.
Yep.
Um, they will remember a story.
Yeah.
Uh, take any of the iconic ads. Uh, the only words we remember are a memorable tagline. What we remember is we remember the jingle and we remember the image.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. No one knows what the iconic Apple ad was about, with the woman running with the sledgehammer,
Yeah.
but everyone knows that ad and remembers it
Yeah.
and remembers Apple for it, that we are basically breaking new ground.
Yeah.
Uh, what the tagline was, you know, uh, you know,
Yeah.
what the verbiage was over it, yeah, there was some man mumbling over it, but no one remembers that.
No, exactly. And you talk a lot about complicated complexity, all that kind of stuff. Complexity is very hard to get across in words. It's extremely difficult, and pictures communicate. It can communicate very complex information very quickly. I mean, when I'm doing my slides, I'm not going to tell them which country's population pyramid I'm showing, and I'm going to talk about how those are changing, and then I even have a couple of surprises where I'm saying, here's a couple of population pyramids in 2024, but I'm going to slip in that one of those is in 1990 before a huge growth surge, and these kind of look like the same thing. So anyway, you can draw analogies and all kinds of stuff that, like, how would I possibly do that in words? It's impossible. Um, yeah. So I'll tell you how it goes next week.
Now, the thing is, post COVID, I think that conferences are definitely coming back.
Yes, definitely.
And uh, I think that people are realizing, despite the expense, despite the hassle, despite the inefficiency relative to an online conference, that there's still something that can't replace being there face to face.
Yeah. And do you remember there was a year or two in there where everybody was saying, well, conferences are going to be online now. We're going to attend them over the web, and this is how things are going to be. And it's not turned out like that at all. Yeah, people are eager to get back in. Yeah. So, well, there you go, folks. Some 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 random ramblings about conferences. But I think
one final word: conferences are like advertising. The old line about advertising: 90% of your advertising budget is wasted. Problem is you don't know which. Attending conferences is like that. 90% of your time is wasted, but you don't know what 90% it is.
Yeah,
and
that's
it's
true.
the 10% that makes it all worthwhile.
Yeah, very true, very true. You kind of have to show up, and then you see what the 10% is. That's for sure.
Well, have fun at your conference.
Thank you.
I look forward to hearing how you nailed your presentation, or else fell down a crying, whimpering sack of, puddle of mud,
salty tears,
totally, crashed and burned. But I'm sure that you'll kill it.
I had to buy a lot of clothing to be able to be presentable at this conference. So yeah, if nothing else, I'd be like, yeah, well, he looks okay. It's all brand new clothes. All right, Rick, good chatting with you as always. And like and subscribe to the channel. Leave us your comments. We're keen to hear. Until next time.
Have fun, everyone.